You hear trainers and people say that you have to be the leader of your dog in order for your dog to be good. And although I don't disagree with that, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding or confusion on what that actually means. So on today's episode, that's what we're going to talk about. Being the leader your dog deserves and needs. Let's dive into it next. All right, welcome to the Learn, Laugh, Bark podcast. I am your host, Jake from ondogtrainingacademy.com. If you go there, you'll see we have courses, we have mini courses, we are going to be putting out webinars, and we are going to start offering coaching, one-on-one coaching via Zoom to anybody that needs help with their dogs, and topics are very broad. So if you're interested in any of that, definitely go to ondogtrainingacademy.com. And you can scroll through what we have to offer. Live events is a new page that we created on there that's going to be talking about just that. One-on-one work, all that stuff. So we're pretty excited that we're going to be offering that for everybody. And it's so easy to sign up. It's so easy to get going. And I mean, most of us nowadays have done something with online work of some kind. And as much as we love our in-person things, I think people are starting to understand the value and need for online services like this as well. So definitely check this out on ondogtrainingacademy.com. Also, you can find us on Facebook, On Dog Training Academy. Just search that in Facebook and you'll find us there, as well as our podcast, Learn, Laugh, Bark podcast is also on Facebook. And you can get in there, you can comment on things, you can have suggestions on what you would like us to talk about. But definitely check that out. Also, something new that we have added to every episode now is what we call the tip jar. So as you guys know, this is obviously free to you. We're giving you guys free advice, trying to help as many people as we possibly can. But that isn't necessarily free to us. You know, there is paying for the podcast service and all the production stuff that goes along with it. So if you've been enjoying these and you'd like to, you definitely don't have to, but if you'd like to, you can click on the link in the description to our tip jar, and there you can donate a little bit of money or whatever to help us out and help us continue to fund this adventure that we're on. We absolutely love doing these podcast episodes, and we're going to continue doing them. But getting a little help financially is always a nice thing, and it's always nice to see appreciation for the work we've been putting in. Not that I'm not saying you have to pay to show me you appreciate, because I've talked to a lot of people who have been really enjoying these podcast episodes, so don't feel obligated, but it definitely helps out, so thank you if you do. So let's go ahead and start to dive into this week's topic. And I think this week's topic is a really good one, and I'm really surprised. I actually looked back at previous episodes and stuff, and I was super surprised that I had not covered this yet. And this is what it means to be your dog's leader. You know, to be the quote unquote alpha. I'm not a huge fan of the term alpha. I think it's been used so much in a way that just has this like negative taste to it when you hear like, well, I'm the alpha in the house, you know, but we need to talk about kind of what it means to be a good alpha, or as we call it, just being a good leader. You know, if you think about dogs operate on a social structure, right? There's ranks, there's a hierarchy. And I mean, you see it, if you have multiple dogs in your house, you probably see it. You know which dogs are the quote unquote pack leaders, or which ones are above the other ones. So there's definitely, it's kind of how they operate. I mean, if you think about it, even humans do work in some sort of hierarchy, you know, whether it's kids respecting their parents, although that's debatable these days, or employees respecting their bosses. You know, there's definitely hierarchies just in life, and it's the same with dogs. So we need to kind of think about that stuff when it comes to interacting and what we do with our dogs. Now, you could find 7,000 different articles out there, probably more than that, about what you should do to be the pack leader. You know, and you could go from you know, Caesar Milan's, well, the dog must be calm and submissive, to a lot of different ones saying you should alpha roll the dog, you know. And there's a lot of, I think, bad advice, or at least advice that I think isn't necessary. Now, granted, this is my opinion on the matter. This isn't necessarily, well, I would say a lot of people agree with me, but this isn't necessarily like, this is how it has to be. This is just my opinion on these things. But I'm going to start by talking about maybe 4 or so things that people are doing right now that, in my opinion, just isn't necessary. I get people like to kind of compare them to wolves, and we can do that to a degree. But I think when it comes to the domestic dog now, they're different. They are different. So some of the things that they are putting towards being a pack leader, I don't think it pertains necessarily to just the generic pet dog, to just a normal dog. Yes, maybe wolves, but there's a lot of difference. There's similarities, but man, there are a lot of differences. So the first kind of misconception, in my opinion, is that you have to control all aspects of your dog's feeding arrangement. Meaning, I'm a huge supporter of scheduled feeding. I don't like free feeding my dog. That goes more to creating really high food drive as opposed to any sort of dominance thing. I just don't like it. I like to schedule feed my dogs. But the thought of we need to eat first because we're the leaders. Dogs, look at how your dog interacts with other dogs, and then look at how your dog acts with you. All right? Watch how they play with other dogs. Watch how they play with you. It's different. So you can say, well, I'm trying to be like what they understand as like a pack mentality or something. But in my opinion, they know we're different. They know we're not dogs. So the whole we must eat first, to me, that's kind of ridiculous. I mean, my dog's entire life, he's been fed before us. Does that mean he thinks he's alpha? Absolutely not. No, there's so much more that goes into it. I think regardless of when I would feed him, it would have basically zero effect on where he feels like he stands in the hierarchy of our pack. So I think, don't feel like, I got to eat first and then I feed my dog. I don't think it really matters. The next one then is controlling all entertainment resources. People think, the dog should play when I want him to play and do these different things. Look, if you want a dog who's so obsessed with you that they don't leave you alone, this might be an avenue to take. But personally, I want a dog who can entertain themselves from time to time. So I have, like our dog Luda's toy bucket is overflowing to a ridiculous point. And it's not a small bucket. When I say bucket, it's not. It's giant. And he has an endless amount of toys, endless amount of bones to chew on. And most of it is because I want him to be able to go in and pick something out that he wants and entertain himself. He'll grab certain toys, he'll grab certain bones, and he'll just play with them. As opposed to being like, I've got this bone out here, you're going to play with it, or this toy out here, okay, we're done, I'm putting it away. You don't have to be in that much control of your dog, I don't think, to really come across as a good pack leader. I think what you're doing is almost setting yourself up for a dog who's going to maybe regress or get worse when it comes to attention-seeking behavior because they just don't have enough stuff to entertain themselves. We want the dogs to be able to entertain themselves and not rely on you, plain and simple. Another one is the whole controlling access to all doorways or narrow openings, meaning I walk through the door first. I mean, again, come on, you really think you walking from the hallway into your bedroom and making sure you walk in first, you really think that's going to make a difference? Personally, I don't. I just don't. I don't think the dogs care. We'll get into the things that help be a pack leader, and I think doing the things that I'm going to mention that you should do will make these things I'm talking about absolutely meaningless. And who really wants to do that? Who wants to have to control every freaking opening that your dog walks through? Who has time for that? Realistically, who has time for that? I don't. Most people don't. And so I think it's just ridiculous to say, if you're going to walk through that door, if your dog's going to go through that door, you go first. Now, I will say, exterior thresholds, doors leading to outside, door leading into my garage, backyard, whatever, I do add an element of control there. I make the dog sit and wait. I open the door, and then once I feel they're ready, or if I check to make sure no one's in the front yard or nothing weird's in the backyard, I then release them to go out and play or go outside, whatever. But that's less to do. I mean, it does, I think, add an element of control, which is nice, but it's more to do about safety than anything. I want the dog to sit and not think it can just blast through the threshold, that exterior threshold, because that could be dangerous, running out towards a road or whatever. Or if you have kids and the kid opens the door and the dog just thinks they can go bolting out, that's obviously a problem. But it doesn't have anything to do with pack leadership, And again, who has time to freaking manage every door or opening in your house? I just think I think you're asking a lot of people, and I think you're doing something that, will it tip the scale? Maybe a little bit, but man, I'm just not seeing it. I don't think it really does anything. And then the last one here is this whole, don't let the dog take position above you. So that thought comes from, if you watch dogs play with each other, a dog standing over another dog is a very dominating stance. Now, I don't disagree with the whole, I won't let my dog stand over me in posture. If I'm laying on the ground, I'm not going to let my dog come up, stand over me, and just be like, you can just see when a dog's doing it, get really stiff and be like, you're mine now. I'm not going to let a dog do that. But to think that I'm never going to, my dog lays on the couch, and sometimes I'll walk up to him, I'll sit on the floor under him, and he's above me, and I'll just pet him. It's not that he's thinking, I'm dominant over you because I'm up here and you're down here. Again, I think we're treating dogs as if they're these wild wolf animal things, and they're not. They're domestic dogs. I think they have a little bit more understanding than a wild wolf does. So this whole thing, I think, is laughably ridiculous in my opinion. Again, if a dog is positioning themselves over the top of you, that's different. But like when you read these things, they're like, just don't let the dog ever be above you. You should always be above the dog. To me, it's just stupid. It's absolutely stupid. Again, there's times where I'm walking up the stairs and my dog's at the top of the stairs and he likes to lay there and wait for me. And so when I come up, I actually kind of crawl up the stairs, on all fours, get up to him, and I lay down at the part of the stairs. So he's above me, and I just pet him. It's become our thing. But he's still above me. Now, does that mean I'm saying I'm being submissive or he's being dominant over me? No, I don't. And here's the problem. I think that with the four things examples I gave you here, I think, again, do these tip the scale? Maybe a tiny little bit, maybe. The effort that it would take to make sure that these happen, to me, aren't even worth it. Not even close. There's so many things you could be doing to better the relationship and have your dog see you as a pack leader than those things that I mentioned. I think you're wasting your time if you emphasize those that much. And so, like I said, there's other things we could be doing. The first one, and let's dive right into what we can be doing. The first one is, your dog should earn things. Not necessarily everything. There are times, I do follow along in the belief that nothing in life is free when it comes to dogs, to a degree. My own dog now, he gets tons of stuff for free, but he's earned it. He showed me through working on Nothing in Life is Free that he is good, and so now he's getting tons of stuff for free. But I mean, being in control, I think you should be in control of a lot of what your dog does. So letting your dog out of their kennel, letting them outside, you should have them sit. I mean, and really when I say control, asking your dog or telling your dog to do something before they get something, it doesn't have to be anything overly tough. It could be something as simple as telling them to sit, a very basic control. Sit, and then once you sit, you're going to get what you want. And yeah, you could do that with feeding. I'm all for making a dog earn it. For one, I just don't like a dog who's crazy when I'm getting their food ready, jumping around, being absolutely reckless or stupid. I don't want that. So my dogs learn to sit before they're allowed to get their food. It's just something that we teach. It's less about dominance. It's really nothing to do with dominance, and more about just, I don't want you to be crazy. I don't want, I want a more appropriate behavior. So, I mean, I think being in control of a lot of what your dog does, that's a really good exercise in general, because not only is it helping you become kind of the giver of the fun, it also becomes, just how it should be. Like, this is how I act, and it just helps the whole dynamic of the house. Another one would be like having your dog moving out of your way a few times a day. Like, I don't seek that necessarily. I do think there is value in a dog respecting your space and like.
We'll be right back.
Hello, this is Panic.
And this is Sarah.
And you are listening to Music Elixir, a podcast between two friends
discussing their favorite Asian artists and music.
I do it not in a sense of like where I walk into the dog and have the dog move, but there'll be times where the dog wants something from me and I just tell him, like our dog always wants attention. So it's not unnormal for me to tell my dog, go away. Like, I don't want to pet you right now. Go. I think that's good to do. Like, the dog shouldn't think they can get everything they want whenever they want, right? Moving out of your way, I get the whole body pressure push away stuff, teaching the dogs, look, get out of my way. I'm the leader. I don't go out of my way to like push the dogs away, and I certainly don't go out of my way of the dog. Like, my dog Luda loves to lay in the kitchen when we're cooking and doing stuff. He's not trying to eat food. He just loves hanging out with us. And I don't necessarily avoid him. I'll step around him, like, whatever. I don't care. But if it really comes down to it, I just say, bud, why don't you get out of the kitchen? And I kick him out of the kitchen. Like, I just don't let him be there. So there is value to it. I just don't think there's a ton, but there's definitely some value to it. The next one then would be not letting them pull on leash. Again, is this pack leadership? To a degree, probably. But this is also just good control. You're going to see a lot of what I talk about is more about like good training and good control of your dog than it is like being dominant or alpha over my dog. But like, yeah, not letting him pull on leash. To me, there's definitely an aspect of respect there. Like, if the dog's pulling you all over and you're like, nah, dude, you have to walk with me. I think that's very valuable, whether it's helping you with pack leadership or not. I mean, I think this definitely will help more than the four that I said weren't. This definitely helps. This is, I think not only is the walking on the leash part in general good, I think the teaching of it, teaching your dog that you have to listen to me, you cannot just pull. I think that's super invaluable. So almost it's like getting to the point of good leash control, I think is more valuable, if this makes sense, than the actual walking on the leash. Like taking a dog who thinks they can pull and bully you and going, no, you can't, and working them through it and then getting them to the point where they don't pull on leash. I think that process, that's going to set you more as a pack leader than the actual walking on a loose leash. But again, that's just my opinion. The other one then is always make him complete a few commands. Like, I'll emphasize on this more. Like, it's not just making them listen to a few commands. It's when I tell you to do something, you need to do it. You have to have, and I've talked about this on previous episodes, you have to follow through. If I tell you to sit, guess what that end result's going to be? You're going to sit. That's it. If I tell you to come, guess what the end result's going to be? The dog's going to come to me. Like, that is just how it is. And that's just plain and simple what I do. Like, I don't go come and the dog walks away and I go, okay, yeah, maybe later. Like, no. If I tell you to do something, I'm telling you to do something. You have to do it. Follow through. And I think that's important. Again, that definitely helps pack leadership wise. But I mean, just general manners and good behavior. We want a dog who listens to what we tell him to do. Because typically when we're telling them to do something, it's because we need them to do it. It's not because, well, I just want to do it for fun. We need you to sit. We need you to come, whatever it might be. So follow through, making sure they listen. Super, super, super important. Not letting them jump on people. Good manners, I think. Again, good manners, that definitely, in my opinion, goes to pack leadership. I think teaching a dog not to jump on you and others, or not to bite you and others, I think that puts a big bump up if you can get a dog to do that, because that jumping, that out of control behavior isn't appropriate. And if you watch, like, when dogs are playing with each other, and I'm not even talking about wolves, I'm talking about two dogs playing with each other. When one dog is sick of being trampled on, like tramp, run over. We'll just say that. Apparently I can't talk. When two dogs are playing and one dog gets run over, they're sick of it. When they get sick of it, they're going to tell the other dog off. Knock it off, knock it off, knock it off. There's a bunch of barking. There's maybe it sounds terrible. It only lasts about 3 seconds, and then it's done. Well, if you do this with your dog, like with the jumping or something, if you're telling your dog, knock this off, you can't jump on me, and the dog starts to understand it, you're taking a leadership role. You're saying, I do not approve of this. You have to stop. That, to me, this alone, these manners, this biting and jumping, to me alone, is big when it comes to pack leadership. A dog who's going to respect your space like that, very, very, very important. So make sure you are not allowing jumping and biting, because for one, it's just not appropriate. It's out of control behavior, and we just don't want it. Whether it's hierarchy or pack leadership or just plain old manners, we just don't want that. I think playing games with your dogs. Again, I think there's a misunderstanding of like tug of war. People think tug of war, it's you against your dog. If your dog beats you, they win and they're alpha. It's just not the case. It's not. I've maybe run into, I've worked thousands of dogs. I've maybe run into like 3 of them that I can think of where I probably wouldn't have played tug of war, maybe. But like tug of war, fetch, all these games are relationship building games. It's creating value in you. And if the dog values you and then you're adding these other respect parts of it, you are going to be a bona fide leader. 100% you're going to be a bona fide leader. Just making sure you are an enforcer. You're making them listen to you. You're feeding them. You're doing all that stuff. But then you're also fun. Like just being a well-rounded leader, not to go not off topic, but like, so I'm sadly a Minnesota Vikings fan, and the coach just got fired, Mike Zimmer. Well, one of the complaints from the players is that he ran a very my way or the highway, wasn't very personable, and he's the leader of the team, right? He's the head coach. And they didn't like it because he was just all do it because I said so. He never took into consideration the other players. He never thought about, being more on the sensitive side, if you would, or being more of a communicator, being clear with what you want the players to do. And it really affected the relationship he had with them. When you look at other coaches who are much more team-oriented, they listen to their players. They're still saying, you have to do this. I am still the leader. But there's other aspects to it that the players respect and like. He's personable. You can go talk to him. And those coaches are loved, and the players play well for them. The players want to play with those. Well, you can take that same sort of mindset and put it into you with your dog. If you're just this dictator who's like, my way or the highway and everything, it'll get tiresome over a while, and I don't think the dogs are going to want to continue with that. You want to have elements to your leadership that are, I'm the boss, but I'm fun, I'm understanding, I'm sympathetic, I'm remorseful, whatever it might be. I don't know. You just want to have levels to it and not just be like, you have to do it because I said so. So those playing games and stuff is just really, really good. Obedience training. Obedience training, not only, again, is this just good for general life with your dog, having a well-trained dog, but like it definitely, making a dog do stuff for you definitely puts you a notch above. And I think it's important to continue throughout the entire life of the dog. Now, doesn't mean you have to do classes forever or whatever, but it definitely means that you need to continue your training. Like our dog Luda, he's almost 6. He's going to be 6 in just over a month. March 1st. And I still do training with him. We're still learning new things too. But I do really basic training with him. Heeling, sits, down, stays, come, all these different things. Because I want him to continue to understand you still have to listen to me. And he's amazing. So like, he's just an awesome dog. I think we got super lucky with him. But it keeps that leadership. It says, hey man, you can't. And we've noticed, like if we go a while and don't train him and don't work with him, or if one of us does, we notice like, okay, he's starting to be a little less obedient towards us when we're saying stuff. We need to kind of ramp the training back up. So don't feel like, well, I did a dog class, so my dog should be good. Well, you should maybe try doing more classes. Like it sounds like you've probably seen t-shirts that say this, but no one has ever complained that I've trained my dog too well. What does an overtrained dog really even mean? Like, oh, my dog's too good in the house. My dog listens to me too well. Like, nobody says that. People say the latter. People say the opposite of that all the time. So keep training with them. Keep working with them. The next one is then grooming. Whether I love grooming. Like our dog, he's super into it. We've done a lot of training with it and kind of enforcing it or reinforcing, making it a fun thing for him. So nail trimming, he's actually kind of likes it, which I think is weird. Brushing, loves brushing. Cleaning his ears, not so much a fan of, but it's a necessity. But just getting him comfortable with being handled. I'm going to touch your feet. I'm going to touch your ears. I'm going to look in your mouth, even if it's just lifting up your gums. I'm doing everything calm, but I'm going to be doing these things. I'm going to brush you. And you can use food and stuff to keep it a positive, but I think it's super important that we're doing this. Dogs, if you watch like even dogs interacting with each other, grooming is a part of it. Like species groom each other. You look at monkeys, you look at cats, you look at dogs, you look at elephants. I mean, think about all the different ones that when they're coexisting, they are grooming each other. It's part of it. And so I think doing this with your dog helps. I think it works really well. Even species that aren't related. Like think about the birds that help kind of clean off rhinos or whatever, or the fish that attach to the sharks. Like interspecies kind of grooming is something that happens as well. So I think this really helps. Last thing I'll kind of mention here. Well, I have two more points here. But the first one is dogs want us to be the pack leader. Okay, what I find with, again, all the dogs that I've trained, there's only been a handful of dogs that wanted to be alpha leader. You could tell with how they would challenge and push you and posture and all these different things that they wanted to be in charge. They didn't want you to be in charge. But I would say 99%, if not more, of the dogs that I've worked want you to be the leader. Now, you might say, well, my dog must be one of those, that 1%, because my dog clearly wants to be alpha. Not necessarily. So what I find is you'll have dogs that are leaders over their humans, but once you really start to work with them, you'll start to notice the dog didn't want it. When you start looking at the owner's interaction with the dog, you start to realize the owners weren't stepping up and being that leader, being that protector. Something I didn't even mention here. Like, I have my dog's back. I will intervene. If a dog is going to come attack my dog, I intervene. I will step in front of my dog and I will take the bullet. Like, I don't care. I will protect my dog. Absolutely. Because if the dog doesn't feel like you have their back, then they're going to feel like, okay, well, then you're not the leader. Then I need to take care of this myself. And so they become the leader, and they're probably terrible at it, but they become the leader. And even though they don't want to, somebody has to lead the ship, right? Someone has to be the captain. And if you're not willing to, then they'll do it. They might do it badly, but they'll do it. So that's what I find more of, that the dogs who are alpha typically don't want to be. And as soon as you show them, like, look, I'm in charge, the dogs back off and they're like, cool, man, I just want to follow. I don't want to lead. And so that's important. The last thing, and this tip to me I think is so, so important. This is a tip on how you can be a good leader. Well, they all were tips, I suppose. But this to me is like a big one. And this is your mindset. This is how you interact with your dog. The big thing I have found, and this doesn't even come from reading books. This comes from watching my own dog. We had a Basset Hound named Copper. He died when he was about almost 12 years old a few years ago. And he taught me so much about being a good pack leader, because he was, out of all the dogs that would come in for training, any dogs he had interaction with, he was the leader. But he was a Basset Hound. The Basset Hound was running the show with the dogs. Now, obviously, he listened to us, and I was definitely a leader over him, but there are these little subsections when it comes to packs or hierarchies. Like, Copper, our Basset, was the leader of the dogs. I was still, me and my wife were leader of the people, but like, he was the leader of the dogs. And I always was mesmerized watching how these crazy dogs and dogs who could have clearly killed him would come up to him and they'd just get submissive. They laid down, they'd respect him. And I started studying him more and more and trying to figure out why. Why is this happening? And it occurred to me, it's his demeanor, it's his mentality. Like, he doesn't just go out there and fight dogs. He never fought dogs. You know, when he was the leader, he never fought dogs. He would just walk around and be like, I'm in charge. You have to do this. Stop playing. Like, he liked to police play and stuff like that, but he'd be like, stop playing, and they'd stop playing. It was more of his mentality was like, I'm in charge. You just have to do this because I said so. He wasn't going around saying, I'm in charge. I'll beat you up. I don't care. I'll fight you. Like, that wasn't his mindset. But he was fantastic at like controlling the other dogs just through his demeanor. So when you're being this leader for your dog, don't feel like you have to yell at them. Don't feel like you have to just scream and be mean and do all this stuff. Just be calm and do it. Enforce it. Come when I tell you to come. Sit, do these different things. Because if your emotions run high, dog stress and everything, and if they see you as a weak leader, it's not going to work. Not going to work. So that's my advice to you for that. So that's it. I'm going to put a wrap on this. I think that was probably enough. This is one of the longer ones I've done. So as you probably know, this or could hear that this is a pretty important topic for me. You know, it's probably we're at like half an hour. It's crazy. But definitely be thinking about these things. Like, what are you doing right now that is helping or hurting your pack leader mentality or the dog seeing you as a leader? What can you do better? You know, ask yourself these questions. I think it's super important. What can you change to help your dog? Because your dog's not going to, especially if your dog is you know, has bad manners or whatever, the dog's not going to change on their own. You have to change for your dog to change. So keep that in mind. Hopefully you guys found this helpful. If you did, like I said, like I've said in many episodes, share this with people. If you know someone who has a little pack leadership issues, send them this. You can copy it and send it to them, whatever it might be. This is all over social media. This will be on anywhere you find podcasts, Spotify, Apple, all that stuff. You can definitely find them all there. But yeah, just think about this. Hopefully this helped, guys. You can check the links in our description for any of the stuff I mentioned earlier, like links to our Facebook pages, our website, and link to the tip jar if you feel like you want to help us out a little bit. Always appreciated. But guys, thank you for listening this week. I hope you learned a lot. And I always look forward to talking to you guys and sharing knowledge and helping everybody out as much as we can. If you are interested in doing possible lessons and things like that, check out ondogtrainingacademy.com. Go look in live events. There you will start to see some new things that we're going to have popping up that I think we're really excited about. So thank you guys, and like always, we'll see you next week.